All right, let's dive into something a little different today. We're going to explore the unique pulse of a village that, well, it runs on its own peculiar time. This is a place where the day doesn't really start, it just kind of happens. So the story kicks off not with some big dramatic event, but with this wonderfully slow, almost edible image of a sunrise. I mean, a lazy egg? That immediately tells you we're on a different clock here. The pace is unhurried and, yeah, delightfully strange. And then we get this absolute gem. This is our first huge clue about what's going on. In this village, the most basic rules of the morning, things we totally take for granted, like a rooster crowing, they just don't apply. The day literally begins on its own terms, if it begins at all. Okay, so let's dig into this first rhythm of the village, right? The reluctant dawn. This is a morning that doesn't just arrive with a jolt. No, it kind of shuffles in, a little confused, completely unapologetic, and honestly, it's pretty clumsy. So forget alarm clocks. The village wakes up to a series of these small, almost comical disasters. It's not one sound, it's like a symphony of minor chaos. I mean, look at this list. Each one is like a tiny failed attempt to get the day going properly. You've got defiant doe, a sneezing pig, and of course, a cow just wandering into the laundry. As you do. And all of this captures this really fascinating feeling. The source calls it a liminal space. You know, that blurry in-between state where it's not quite night, but it hasn't really committed to being day yet either. It's like a collective yawn, this shared moment of confusion before all the chores kick in. And that's what's so important here. It's like this quiet, village-wide resistance against the tyranny of a to-do list. And then, finally, the rooster makes a sound. But is it a proud cock-a-doodle-doo? Nope. It's this hilariously reluctant, half-hearted noise. It's the perfect, totally anticlimactic signal that, all right, fine, they can't put it off any longer. The village just grudgingly gives in and surrenders to the day. So, that reluctant dawn, it kind of builds into the next phase of the day. And that's what we're calling the rhythms of survival. We're talking about these chaotic, but also deeply comforting morning rituals. And let's be clear, this isn't about thriving. It's just about getting through the morning with a wild mix of tradition, grit, and yeah, some outright weirdness. The sensory details here are just, wow, incredible. You can almost smell it, right? Not fresh bread, but old porridge and reused ale. It paints such a vivid picture of a morning built on resilience, not refinement. And that phrase, dust and commitment, that says everything. This is no fairy tale village morning. It's a gritty, practical, lived-in reality. And check this out. This comparison just perfectly illustrates the village's unique blend of faith and, well, pragmatism. You've got these sacred rituals on one side, like tying garlic to a baby's ankle to ward off bad luck. And then on the other, you have these deeply practical, if kind of weird, hygiene habits. The sacred and the strange, living right next to each other and nobody even blinks. It just shows you that their worldview is this wonderfully messy, integrated whole. Okay, so as the day finally gets going, the focus starts to shift. We move out of the houses and into the communal spaces. This is where we really get to see the heart of the village, through the way people interact while they work and, occasionally fall in love. Every village has one. The well here is basically the unofficial news headquarters. It's run by this sharp-tongued council of elders who miss nothing. And look how it's broken down. Each woman has a specific role. Bertha starts it, Martha doubts it, Agnes escalates it, and Elbeth just drops the final bomb. Now, it's easy to just call this gossip, but really, this network is their social glue. It's how news travels, and it's how the rules of the community are kept in check. And then there's the story of Edwin and Gertrude the cow. This is just a perfect four-step lesson in pure humiliation and, well, cow superiority. It's this tiny little comic tragedy, but it shows you so much about the hierarchy of the village. A cow with a bad attitude is clearly at the top, and learning how to accept daily defeat with a bit of humor, that's a core survival skill right there. But amidst all this hard work and cow kicking, what really stands out are these small, kind of awkward moments of human connection. I mean, Tom's turnip poem for Amwen, it's objectively terrible, right? But it's also so heartfelt. It's the perfect example of this village's clumsy but totally endearing approach to romance. This is where the village really comes alive, though, in what the source calls these moments of absurd grace. It's when the boring everyday stuff is suddenly and beautifully interrupted by something completely ridiculous. This is where you see the true character of the place. Take Brother Cuthford, for example. I mean, look at this list of his eccentricities. He perfectly embodies the village's spirit. He's part wise, part mad, and everyone loves him precisely because he's a question that doesn't need an answer. He's just the living embodiment of accepting the wonderfully strange. And this timeline is amazing. It shows how one single, totally unexplained event, a bell rings, can spiral into a full-blown, joyous, and completely nonsensical village-wide party. They don't need a real reason to celebrate. They just need a signal, any excuse, really, to embrace the chaos. It shows they value spontaneous joy way more than some rigid schedule. And you have to love this scene. A chicken named Margaret, invades evening prayers and somehow achieves accidental sainthood. The priest's desperate plea, "Lord, deliver us from Cluck," is just perfect. It brilliantly captures this village's unique talent for finding something divine in the most ridiculous situations. All right, so we're arriving at the final rhythm of the day now, as the village starts to wind down. You can feel the energy shift, right? It goes from all that chaotic action to the shared comfort of the darkness. This is where community is found in a different way, around the fire and in the shared sounds of sleep. So, people gather on the fire, and the stories they tell, they're not for the history books. They're for warmth. It's all about weaving truth and nonsense together. The point isn't to deceive anyone, it's to make the night feel a little less ordinary and to make everyone feel just a bit more connected. And the village definitely doesn't fall silent at night. Oh no. The soundscape just changes. The noise of labor outside gets replaced by the deeply human, and let's be honest, often hilarious noises of sleep inside. It's this really intimate, unguarded soundtrack to their lives. And in the end, the day doesn't wrap up with some big finale. It ends with this simple, quiet act of care, just checking on Gertrude the cow. It's a small moment, but it connects a person, an animal, and the whole night sky. It's what brings a very chaotic day to a peaceful and really meaningful close. So after exploring this ridiculous, beautiful village, we're left with a final thought to chew on. In our own lives, which are so full of clocks and schedules and order, is it possible there's a kind of messy, intuitive wisdom in all their chaos? A rhythm that maybe we've forgotten how to listen to? All right, today we're going to break down one absolutely brilliant scene. We're going to see how a master storyteller can build an entire world, a mood, a whole cast of characters in just a couple of minutes. So let's just dive right in to this masterclass in world building. Okay, so put yourself in the writer's shoes for a second. Your job is to introduce an entire village and give it a personality. And that personality? Pure reluctance. That's a heck of a challenge, right? I mean, how do you actually film unwillingness? It all comes back to the golden rule of storytelling, you know? Show, don't tell. You don't just put up a sign that says, "Welcome to the grumpy village." No, you have to build that feeling, piece by tiny piece, using what people see and hear, so the audience can feel it for themselves. And the whole scene just pivots on this one perfect, expectation-shattering line. This isn't just an action, it's a declaration of intent. The one creature in the entire world whose job it is to announce the dawn just decides, nah, not today. And right away, you know something is wonderfully, fundamentally off about this place. So how do they build on that amazing opening? Well, it all comes down to painting a very, very specific atmosphere using all the senses. And atmosphere isn't just the background scenery, right? It's the emotional air the whole story breathes. It's what you actually feel when you're watching the scene, and it's all built by carefully picking every little sight and sound. Visually, you can see this isn't some sharp, crisp, get-up-and-go kind of morning. We get these slow, drifting, almost dreamy shots. The light is golden and warm, sure, but that thick mist blurs all the edges. It makes everything hazy and sort of unclear, almost like the entire village is still tucked under a blanket, refusing to face the day. And then you start to hear it. The scene starts in that deep quiet left by the rooster's little protest. But then, sound starts to creep in. And it's not cheerful birdsong, oh no. It's the messy, wet squelch of mud. That is the unmistakable sound of a world that does not wake up cleanly. This one word, right here, just captures the entire mood perfectly. The village doesn't greet the day, it doesn't embrace it, it surrenders to it. It gives up as if it just lost a battle it never even wanted to fight in the first place. This gives the whole community one big, collective, exhausted personality. So the mood is set. It's hazy, it's reluctant. But what about the actual people? Well, this is where it gets really clever. The scene manages to introduce us to a whole cast of characters without a single one of them saying a word. The technique they're using here is the vignette. And really, all that is a short, focused little glimpse into a moment. It's like a quick snapshot. And when you string a bunch of them together, they create this rich mosaic that shows you the personality of the whole village. And man, what a tour we get. There's the baker's boy, who just tumbles right off his stool. You've got the old women by the well, and you just know they're gossiping. There's a kid with a fish who looks incredibly guilty, and my personal favorite, a guy stumbling out of the tavern with a chicken. Every little moment is its own story. And here's the thing, none of this is random. Each of these little actions helps paint a picture of a place that is clumsy, messy, deeply human, and a long, long way from some perfect, idealized fantasy village. It has a real, flawed, authentic personality. Which, of course, brings us back to our star player, the one who kicked this whole reluctant morning off in the first place, the rooster. This is where the scene's tone, its character, and its comedy all crash together. So we've been waiting for this, right? We are conditioned our entire lives to expect that big, heroic, sun-saluting crow from every story we've ever heard. But what do we get instead? A sound the script itself describes as pathetic and embarrassing. In its one big moment to shine, our hero completely fails. And the sound design here just drives home the comedy. The rooster's attempt isn't just a failure, it's a punchline. The script actually calls for a sneeze yawn, which has to be the absolute opposite of a majestic call to arms. It's hilarious. And in that one glorious failure, the rooster becomes the town's perfect mascot. It tries, it fails, it's a little pathetic, but hey, it's trying. It's the perfect symbol for a village that just stumbles and squelches its way into the morning instead of striding into it boldly. Okay, so let's tie this all together. Why spend so much time and effort crafting a scene about a village that can't even wake up properly? Well, because it reveals the absolute core theme of the entire story. Think about it. The rooster failed its one job. The symbol of the dawn failed to announce it. And what happened because of it? Absolutely nothing. The sun came up anyway. The world just kept on turning. And that's the powerful, beautiful idea at the very heart of this thing. Life doesn't wait for us to be perfect. It doesn't wait for us to be ready. It doesn't need a heroic fanfare to get started. It just starts, messy and imperfect, whether we're stumbling or falling or failing to crow. And that's not just okay, it's true. So that leaves us with one final thought. This whole masterful scene is built around a failure, a total non-event. It really makes you ask, what if the best stories aren't about the big, dramatic things that happen, but about the beautiful, messy truth of what almost doesn't? All right, today we are taking a trip back in time. We're going to look at the morning rituals of a historical village, and trust me, they are strange. But at first glance, what looks totally bizarre is actually this incredible hidden system for survival. So let me just start with this question for you. What if your breakfast fought back? Seriously. Forget about your nice, easy bowl of cereal. We're talking about a world where the very first thing you did in the morning was a real challenge, a test of your will before you even walked out the door. And that, of course, brings us straight to our first big idea, food. You know, in a world where you're constantly on the edge of scarcity, every single crumb, every calorie, it all counts. So how did they do it? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating, and it lies in two very different breakfast staples. I want you to just picture this for a second. In one little house, you've got a woman stirring a pot of what's called eternal porridge. It just keeps simmering, always there, always ready to eat. But then, right next door, her husband is literally gnawing on a piece of bread that's so hard it's described as weapon-like. These aren't just meals, you guys. They're basically entire survival philosophies. And here's where the logic just clicks into place. See, the eternal porridge? That was all about community fuel. It was a shared, nonstop source of energy for the whole family. But the weapon-like bread, that was for individual grit. It was tough, it was long-lasting, built for one person to take with them and know it wouldn't go bad. So you have two foods doing two totally different but equally important jobs. Okay, so you've managed to get some food in you. What's next? Well, staying clean. How in the world do you manage hygiene when you have no running water, no soap, no anything, really? Well, their solution was just pure creative genius. Look, their daily routine was not about feeling pampered. It was all about being practical, using exactly what the world around them provided. It wasn't a spa day, it was a gritty, functional, no-nonsense way to fight off sickness and just feel human. So check out how this worked. First step, splash. A shocking jolt of cold water. This wasn't just to get clean, it was to wake you up fast. Step 2, scrub. They'd use abrasive moss, which is basically nature's Brillo pad, to scrub off all the grime. And then there's step 3, and this one is wild, a sour milk rinse for your mouth. I know, it sounds disgusting, but the acidity was probably great for killing germs. It's like this brilliant, if kinda gross, piece of ancient dentistry. So you're fed. You're cleanish. But the world is still a pretty unpredictable and, frankly, dangerous place. So this final piece of the puzzle is all about how they protected themselves, not just from things they could see, but from things they couldn't. It's this amazing mix of practical action and superstition. This is honestly one of my favorite lines from the source material. The baker sings to his spiteful dough. How great is that? It sounds completely nuts, right? As if the dough is angry at him, but there's something much, much deeper going on here than just a quirky habit. And this is a perfect example of something called a working ritual. It's this simple but powerful idea where you merge a practical need with a superstitious belief. So the baker's song, it isn't just to make the dough happy. It's a rhythm. It's a timer for how long to knead. It's a way for him to focus and get a perfect loaf every single time. The superstition actually serves the work. And once you see it, you see this principle everywhere. That clove of garlic on a baby's crib, sure, it's warding off evil spirits, but its powerful smell probably kept disease-carrying insects away too. Spitting over your shoulder for luck, it gives you a physical moment to pause and reset your brain before a tricky task. And those prayers muttered over the stew, they're probably also a mental reminder to stir the pot so the precious food doesn't burn. It's all about creating a feeling of control in a world where you have very little. So let's pull all this together. You've got the porridge, the moss, the singing to dough. What do all these things really have in common? Well, they are all part of a much bigger rhythm, a whole system built not just for living, but for enduring. And that is the absolute heart of it. These were not just a bunch of random, weird habits. They were ingenious solutions, created because they had to be. Every single ritual, no matter how odd it looks to us today, was a tool that had been sharpened over generations for one purpose: survival. Ultimately, eating and cleaning and protecting yourself, they weren't seen as separate things. They were all woven together into one single system, a system with one goal: make it to the end of the day. Every part supported every other part, creating this daily rhythm of resilience. And that leaves us with one final thought, one that kind of turns the mirror back on us. We might not be chewing on weapon-like bread, but our mornings are full of our own little rituals, right? So what are the stubborn routines that define your morning? And what purpose, seen or unseen, are they really serving in your life? Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to explore where social power really comes from. And, it's not always in courts or castles. Sometimes it's at a simple village well, where a few whispers and glances can be just as powerful as any judge's gavel. This quote, well, it just perfectly captures the kind of unofficial power we're about to dive into. A power that, operates in whispers, but it can carry the exact same weight as the law. You have to picture this. Every single morning, long before the rest of the village even starts to stir, a whole different kind of work begins at the well. It's here that a simple spot to get water transforms into a daily tribunal. It's the place where the social fabric of the entire community gets woven and, more often than not, rewoven. So, let's meet the real authorities here. These women, they aren't elected officials, they're not nobles, nothing like that, but they arrive with the precision of a clock every single day to take their seats on that old wooden bench. Their unofficial court. And from this one simple bench, they become the ultimate arbiters of everyone's reputation. This gathering, what we're calling the morning tribunal, literally holds the threads of every single life in its hands. It decides people's fates before the first rooster even thinks about crowing. So the big question is, how do they actually wield this power? Well, their method is honestly a masterclass in turning simple observation into powerful social currency. It's a process that can build someone up, sure, but let's be real, it more often tears them down completely. It all starts with something that seems totally innocent. Like, look, the baker's wife is wearing a yellow dress. To you or me, it's just a color. But to the tribunal? Oh no, that's a piece of evidence. And that single observation gets dissected for every possible meaning, every potential secret it might be hiding. And then, just like that, their gaze shifts. Now they've spotted a tiny piece of hay in the priest's beard. And in this circle, believe me, hay is never just hay. Every little detail is scrutinized, it's questioned, and it's woven into a brand new narrative. Was he just helping a farmer? Or is this proof of a secret transgression? And this is how you see their system. It starts with a sharp observation. That moves into an implied meaning. Then it solidifies into a shared conclusion. And finally, it becomes a hard, lethal reality for the person being judged. All of this done before the sun is even fully up. This is exactly how unwritten social rules are ruthlessly enforced. But you might be thinking, is this just harmless talk? Village gossip? Or does their judgment actually have a real effect? Well, we're about to see how these words build into something far, far more tangible than just gossip. See, the tribunal's authority, it isn't just theoretical. It has a very real and very visible impact on everyone in the community. And that impact, most of the time, is just plain fear. The power of this tribunal, it's not just seen on that bench. No, it's seen in the reactions of the people who have to come before it. Just take a look at this young girl approaching the well.
She is the living, breathing embodiment of their influence. Her hands are stiff, her eyes are glued to the ground. She moves in total silence because she is terrified. She knows that every single move she makes, the way she carries her bucket, the silence she keeps, it's all being cataloged, all ready to become the main topic of tomorrow's session. And make no mistake, the tribunal's reach is absolute. It extends to every single corner and every single person in the village. No one is too powerful or too insignificant or too innocent to escape their gaze.
Their scope is just limitless. They can move seamlessly from dissecting the life of the quietest girl in the village to, believe it or not, debating the merits of a so-called blasphemous pig. It doesn't matter if you're human or animal, everything falls under their jurisdiction. But it's interesting, it's not all about cruelty. These women, they're bound together by this central role they play, and their shared power actually forges this complex, almost affectionate bond between them, a kind of unity that's built on the foundation of judging everyone else. So, as the morning finally ends and the village starts to properly wake up, the tribunal's work is done. The women get up from their posts, their session now concluded for the day. And in just a few hours, they've completely rearranged the social order. They've decided who's in favor and who's been cast out, who gets praised and who gets shunned. And as they walk away, all they leave behind is a kind of satisfied silence. And of course, the consequences of their verdicts. And that really just leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? These unofficial seats of power, they exist everywhere. On park benches, in office break rooms, in online forums. They shape reputations and enforce social norms in ways we might not even see. So the question is, where's the tribunal in your community? All right, let's jump right into a story. This isn't some grand epic, but a small tale about immense pressure, escalating chaos, and, believe it or not, the surprising freedom you can find when things go spectacularly wrong. So, picture this. It's the 14th century, and we're in a scriptorium. And no, this isn't some grand, inspiring library. Think of it more like a dusty workshop, where history is literally copied, one painstaking letter at a time. And this is where we meet our guy, Lionel. He's not just writing, he's in a full-on battle, a three-front war, really, against his own ink, the complexities of Latin, and this overwhelming feeling that everything is about to spin completely out of control. Now, what's he working on? It's a charter, a super important legal document for the lord of the manor. The stakes are incredibly high. But here's the kicker. It's all in Latin. And the lords who are going to hear this thing read aloud, they won't understand a single word. So right away, you have this clash between the performance of importance and what's actually meaningful. You know how disasters rarely start with a big explosion? They start small. For Lionel, the whole thing kicks off not with a bang, but with a sneeze. A huge, wet sneeze that just obliterates a perfectly written line of text. Just one tiny, frustrating human moment.
And before Lionel can even grab a scraper or, process his frustration, the door creaks open. It's the manor's steward, and he's not there to offer help. Oh no, he's there for what feels like the 10th time today to say that charter has to be ready tonight. It's not a request, it's a command, and it just cranks that pressure dial all the way up.
So you see how this is all just piling on, right? It's not just one thing. It's the ruined line, which is made worse by the impatient steward, which is made terrifying by the evening deadline. And all that stress, it starts to show. Lionel's hands, they've started to shake. And for a scribe, that's an absolute disaster.
I mean, you can just feel the tension, can't you? He's right on the edge trying to fix an unfixable mistake, with shaky hands and a clock that just won't stop ticking. So what could possibly go wrong next? Well, as it turns out, quite a lot.
The big turning point, the real meltdown, happens in 3 quick, chaotic steps. First, there's a loud crash out in the hallway. Second, the noise absolutely terrifies the scriptorium's resident cat. And third, in a blur of panicked fur, the cat just bolts across Lionel's desk, landing square in an open inkwell. And this is the point of no return. The cat, now soaked in ink, scrambles right across the charter, leaving this perfect, almost hilarious trail of little inky paw prints. Any dream of a clean, perfect document is just gone. This isn't a mistake you can just scrape away. No, this is a masterpiece of chaos.
As Lionel stares at this ruined page, something inside him just snaps. But it's not anger, it's not panic, it's something else. He moves right past anxiety and lands in this state of calm, almost philosophical acceptance. The worst has happened. The pressure's gone because, well, the goal is impossible now. And in that impossibility, he finds this strange kind of freedom.
And this really captures his big realization. He finally gets it. His job wasn't really about creating understanding. It was about putting on a show. On one side, you have the lords, who are going to nod along to fancy Latin they don't get. And on the other, you have Lionel, a tired scribe who suddenly sees how absurd the whole thing really is. So, with this new clarity, this new freedom, Lionel decides to do something just for himself. I mean, nobody's going to understand the text anyway, right? So why not have a little fun with it? It's his own small, silent act of rebellion, a way to get a little bit of his own sanity back. So he leans back over the messy parchment, dips his quill, and very carefully, he writes a brand new line. Tucked away in all that dense, formal legal talk, he adds a secret, completely silly sentence in perfect Latin about pigs. It's an inside joke for an audience of one, him. And for the first time all day, he cracks a little smile. So there it is. The job is technically done. Paw prints, pig jokes, the whole shebang. He leans back with a sigh of relief, reaches over to put the inkwell away for the last time, and his sleeve catches the edge. The entire inkwell tips over, drenching the document in one final dark wave of failure. It's the perfect, chaotic cherry on top. Lionel just looks at this ink-drenched, paw-printed, pig-joked-about charter. He doesn't scream. He doesn't panic. He just sighs. A deep, soul-cleansing sigh of a man who is well and truly done. And he makes a simple, final decision. When the steward gets back, he's just going to blame the cat. It's the perfect, simple excuse for a beautiful, complex failure. And that's where we leave him. This whole story is a funny look at failure, but it really leaves you with a thought, doesn't it? We think of history as this grand narrative written by powerful victors. But maybe, just maybe, some of it is written by tired men like Lionel, working under absurd pressure, who finally just decide they're done. It makes you wonder. All right, let's dive into what is truly a classic cautionary tale. It's a story about a young kid with a lot of ambition, a task that seems pretty simple, and, well, an absolutely immovable force of nature. This is the education of Edwin, and his final exam is to milk the iron cow. See, this isn't just about getting some milk for the village. The language here is so epic. Conquer. Because for our apprentice, Edwin, that's exactly what this is. It's a battle of wills, a showdown between man and beast. So let's meet our challenger and our champion. Picture this. We're in a quiet, sun-drenched barn. You've got dust motes just dancing in the light. And right in the middle of it all, there she sits, an immovable object, a furry mountain of pure judgment. Her name is Gertrude. And here's where it all clicks into place. It's all about perspective, right? To anyone else passing by, Gertrude is just livestock. But to Edwin, oh no, she is the throne of doom. She's not an animal. She's a gatekeeper, a final boss. She holds all the psychological power in this dusty little arena. So Edwin walks in, bucket in hand, and he's just immediately dwarfed by her sheer presence. From the very first moment, the odds are crystal clear. This is David versus a very, very unimpressed Goliath. So how do you even approach a throne of doom? Well, Edwin has a strategy, but it's one that's born from pure, unfiltered fear. He thinks that if he can just show enough respect, enough reverence, maybe, just maybe, the beast will grant him mercy. He is, of course, completely wrong. You can practically feel his heart pounding in his chest. He's not just walking, he's doing this painstaking ballet of terror. Every single step is like a prayer. He extends a shaky hand, not to take, but to beg, hoping for some kind of bovine grace that is absolutely not coming. And so the trials begin. Gertrude doesn't waste a single second establishing the rules of engagement here. Edwin's whole offering of reverence is about to be met with a swift and, frankly, pretty damp rejection. It plays out like a tragic comedy, really. He gets close, and what's his reward? A massive, wet sneeze directly to the face. A mucus blessing, if you want to call it that. But he's undeterred. He wipes his face and manages to produce one single, pathetic squirt of milk into the bucket. A totally hollow victory because judgment is on its way. And this is where the mood shifts. Forget about sneezes. We're now moving into the realm of premeditated assault. I want you to watch her hind leg. It doesn't just twitch, it tenses. Now, you might be asking yourself, could this just be a simple reaction? You know, an involuntary movement from a startled animal? It's a fair question, but it's also completely the wrong one. No, this is pure unadulterated calculation. This is Gertrude's specialty. She has considered the trajectory, the velocity, and the absolute perfect point of impact for maximum humiliation. And there it is. The kick connects. We see Edwin sail through the air in this beautiful, tragic, slow motion, landing in a heap in a pile of hay. And then the sound just cuts out. All you're left with is the silence of total, crushing defeat. That was miscalculation number one. But you have to give it to Edwin. The kid has resilience. He picks himself up, dusts himself off, and gets right back on that stool. This time, a new tactic. No more reverence. This time, he tries a gentle humming tune, a little music to soothe the savage beast. And for a few glorious seconds, it works. The humming starts, and incredibly, the milk begins to flow. It's stable. He's found a rhythm. You can literally see the flicker of hope in Edwin's eyes. And then, faster than you can even process it, that hope is extinguished by the sharp crack of Gertrude's tail whipping right across his face. The music stops. The betrayal is complete. And that's the end of the line for Edwin. He's on the floor, totally shell-shocked. He's tried fear, he's tried kindness, and he has failed utterly. It's at this moment of absolute despair that the wise old stablemaster enters the barn, here to deliver the final brutal lesson. Turns out, it was never about the strategy, not the reverence, not the humming. The stablemaster reveals the fundamental truth of the matter. Gertrude's respect isn't earned, it's granted. And it's granted to an exclusive club of two. Edwin's application was denied before he ever even walked through the door. And that leaves us with the real mystery, doesn't it? Edwin's education is complete. He learned he was never even in the running, but it begs the question that just hangs there in the dusty air of that barn. If Edwin isn't on the list, who are the two people in the entire village that the